Do you work a lot? I know that's something that you and many will answer with a definite yes. All that work can be taxing, is it not? Do you ever find yourself overloaded with your work schedule and you're contemplating getting a really good rest for even just one day? Well, I got great news for you. You can. As you listen to what I just said, you may be thinking to yourself, where or how can I get some much needed rest? Or you may say, great, because I need it. Where do I sign up? That rest that we all so desire has been provided to us by God. It is called the Sabbath. Many have heard about the Sabbath, but there are some that unfortunately that have never heard about the Sabbath. As far as those who have heard of it before, there are a raging number of debates about it in many Christian circles. Some say that it's on Saturday, others Sunday. Those who advocate for Sunday observance will use a number of Bible verses for support. Others argue that Jesus is their Sabbath. Others say that it doesn't matter what day you choose as the Sabbath. These are the same people who believe that it's a day for the Jews only and it does not apply to New Testament Christians. There are even groups of individuals who observe the Sabbath based on the phases of the moon. For those who hear about the Sabbath for the first time, they just want to know what it's all about. We will be answering the questions, debates, and dispelling the myths that are out there about this subject in this video and in subsequent videos. Join me as we contemplate a day to remember. Let's go all the way back to the beginning. The first time that we see the Sabbath in the Bible is all the way back at the creation account in Genesis. God creates the world and everything in it in 6 days, as recorded in Genesis chapter 1. Each day of the week, there was something specific that God would take time to create. We know there are 7 days in each week. Let's look at what God did on that first week. On day 1, He created the light, which was for the day, and the darkness, which was for the night. On day 2, He created the sky. On day 3, He created the seas, dry land, plants, and trees. Day 4, He created the sun, moon, and stars. Day 5, He created sea creatures and birds. Day 6, He created land animals and mankind. And on day 7, God rested and blessed the seventh day. And we see the Sabbath come into play in Genesis chapter 2, verses 1 through 3, which says, "Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the host of them. And on the seventh day, God ended His work which He had made, and He rested on the seventh day from all His work which He had made. And God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because that in it He had rested from all His work which God created and made." So according to this text, after the 6 days of creation, God blessed the seventh day, sanctified it, and rested. What does the word sanctified mean? According to Google, the word sanctified means set apart as or declare holy, consecrate. Now some may take the grounds that the Sabbath is never mentioned in the book of Genesis after the record made in Genesis chapter 2 verses 1 through 3. So therefore we don't have proof that the Sabbath was kept by the likes of Adam and Eve, Noah, Abraham, and the other patriarchs. While it is true that we don't see the Sabbath mentioned by name throughout the book of Genesis, to argue that there is no proof that anyone mentioned in Genesis kept the Sabbath would be an absurd way to think. There are a number of Bible verses that can debunk this way of thinking. Let's begin with Adam's first son, Cain. In Genesis chapter 4, verses 6 through 7, we read, "And the Lord said unto Cain, Why art thou wroth, and why is thy countenance fallen? If thou doest well, shalt thou not be accepted? And if thou doest not well, sin lieth at the door, and unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him." You may ask, what does this have to do with the Sabbath? Let's dig a little deeper. What is sin? 1 John chapter 3 verse 4 tells us, "Whosoever committeth sin, transgresseth also the law, for sin is the transgression of the law." What law? The law of the 10 Commandments. What commandment is included in the 10 Commandments? The Sabbath. Cain violated the law of God by doing things his own way and not following the exact course that God has prescribed. We know the ultimate sin that he committed was murdering his brother Abel. After God had marked Cain, Cain dwelt in the land of Nod on the east of Eden. It was in that land, according to the great Jewish historian Josephus, that Cain continued his spree of rebellion against God. Cain's descendants followed his course by rebelling against the Creator God and working and resting on the days that they chose and not resting on the seventh-day Sabbath. We can also see the principle of the Sabbath was known in the days of the flood, in the days of Noah. In Genesis chapter 8, verses 10 and 12, we read, "And he stayed yet other 7 days. And again, he sent forth the dove out of the ark. And he stayed yet other 7 days, and sent forth the dove, which returned not again unto him any more." This confirms the 7 days that were set forth in the creation week. So that's how we can see the principle of the Sabbath here, because remember, the Sabbath is on the 7th day. Let's now move on to Abraham. In Genesis chapter 18, verse 19, it says, "For I know him, that he will command his children and his household after him, and they shall keep the way of the Lord, to do justice and judgment, that the Lord may bring upon Abraham that which he hath spoken of him." What does this text imply, especially when it says that they shall keep the way of the Lord? It implies that Abraham was keeping God's commandments, including the Sabbath, and taught his household to do the same. For proof of Abraham keeping God's commandments, see the following verse. In Genesis chapter 26, verse 5, God says, "Because that Abraham obeyed my voice and kept my charge, my commandments, my statutes, and my laws." The biblical record is clear. It doesn't have to necessarily say that they kept the Sabbath word for word in order for us to figure out that they were Sabbath keepers. If God sanctified and blessed the 7th day for holy use on day 7 of creation week, then why would God not institute the enforcement of that commandment along with the other 9 commandments until the giving of the law on Mount Sinai in Exodus chapter 20? It would not be logical. So it is safe for us to conclude that the Sabbath was being observed in the book of Genesis. God is a God of order. He is not the author of confusion. Speaking of the 10 Commandments, let's now transition to that period when the 10 Commandments were given to the children of Israel. Now, going back to the definition that we looked at from Google for the word sanctified, it's very interesting that Google's definition for the word sanctified defines it as declare holy. Now, why is that significant? That's because when we fast forward from Genesis to Mount Sinai, as recorded in the book of Exodus, when Moses is receiving the 10 Commandments to give to the children of Israel, this is what God says about the Sabbath. In Exodus chapter 20, verses 8 through 11, God says, "Remember the Sabbath day, to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work. But the 7th day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in them is, and rested the 7th day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day, and hallowed it." God is referring the children of Israel back to the creation week, and he uses the terms 7th day and Sabbath interchangeably. So therefore the 7th day is the Sabbath. He tells us to keep it holy. In other words, he is saying, observe this day which I set apart for holy use. The Sabbath is a memorial for the 6 days of creation, and it shows us that we are to follow the example of God in resting on this day from our labor throughout the week, just like he rested after creating the world. After the proclamation of the 7th-day Sabbath from Mount Sinai, God made sure to emphasize the importance of the Sabbath. He relayed to Israel how the Sabbath was a sign to them that God made heaven and earth. In Exodus chapter 31, verses 16 through 17, it says, "Wherefore the children of Israel shall keep the Sabbath, to observe the Sabbath throughout their generations, for a perpetual covenant. It is a sign between me and the children of Israel forever. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, and on the seventh day he rested and was refreshed. The Sabbath was also a sign that God was the sanctifier. In Exodus chapter 31, verse 13, God says, "Verily my Sabbaths ye shall keep, for it is a sign between me and you throughout your generations, that ye may know that I am the Lord that doth sanctify you." And in Ezekiel chapter 20, verses 12 and 20, God also says, "Moreover also I gave them my Sabbaths to be a sign between me and them, that they might know that I am the Lord that sanctify them. And hallow my Sabbaths, and they shall be a sign between me and you, that ye may know that I am the Lord your God." Since we discovered from the book of Genesis the patriarchs were keeping the Ten Commandments, including the Sabbath, we see that the Sabbath is once again introduced in Exodus. For God to proclaim the Sabbath and its importance to keep it holy, was this knowledge of the Sabbath and the timing of its observance lost to the Israelites? Was this concept of the Sabbath brand new to them? Well, no, it wasn't. You see, before the law of God was proclaimed from Mount Sinai in Exodus chapter 20, the Israelites understood the importance of keeping the Sabbath holy before they got to Mount Sinai. And this can be found just 4 chapters before the grand event on the mountain. In Exodus chapter 16, verses 4 through 5, and verses 21 through 30. And we read, "Then said the Lord unto Moses, Behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a certain rate every day, that I may prove them, whether they will walk in my law or no. And it shall come to pass that on the 6th day they shall prepare that which they bring in, and it shall be twice as much as they gather daily. And they gathered it every morning, every man according to his eating. When the sun waxed hot, it melted. And it came to pass that on the 6th day they gathered twice as much bread, 2 omers for one man. And all the rulers of the congregation came and told Moses. And he said unto them, This is that which the Lord hath said. Tomorrow is the rest of the holy Sabbath unto the Lord. Bake that which ye will bake today, and seethe that ye will seethe, and that which remaineth overlay up for you to be kept until the morning. And they laid it up till the morning, as Moses bade, and it did not stink, neither was there any worm therein. And Moses said, Eat that today, for today is a Sabbath unto the Lord. Today ye shall not find it in the field. 6 days ye shall gather it, but on the 7th day, which is the Sabbath, in it there shall be none. And it came to pass that there went out some of the people on the 7th day for to gather, and they found none. And the Lord said unto Moses, How long refuse ye to keep my commandments and my laws? See, for that the Lord hath given you the Sabbath. Therefore he giveth you on the 6th day the bread of 2 days. Abide ye every man in his place, and let no man go out of his place on the 7th day. So the people rested on the 7th day. So the Israelites still knew when the Sabbath came after they had left Egypt, so the timing was not lost. It was also not a brand new concept to them. The reason that God brought the Sabbath to their attention, even though they were already aware of it, is because they were constantly surrounded by heathen practices and heathen deities during their bondage in Egypt. They would have lost sight over time of the supremacy of Jehovah over and above all other gods. The Sabbath commandment is the only one out of the Decalogue that points to Jehovah as the true God. The observance of the Sabbath would set Israel apart as God's people. It would show to others around them which God they worshipped. This is why after the 10 Commandments were given to them, God told Israel the following in Exodus chapter 20, verse 23. Ye shall not make with me gods of silver, neither shall ye make unto you gods of gold. They were in danger of reflecting the Egyptians. After the children of Israel finally made it to the Promised Land, they still remembered the observance of the Sabbath. Time was not lost. The prophets of God called attention to the Sabbath, and there were laws regarding the Sabbath. So let's first read in 2 Kings chapter 4, verse 23. It says, And he said, Wherefore wilt thou go to him today? It is neither new moon nor Sabbath. And she said, It shall be well. 1 Chronicles 9:32. And other of their brethren, of the sons of the Kohathites, were over the showbread, to prepare it every Sabbath. Isaiah 56:2-6. Blessed is the man that doeth this, and the Son of Man that layeth hold on it, that keepeth the Sabbath from polluting it, and keepeth his hand from doing any evil. Neither let the son of the stranger, that hath joined himself to the Lord, speak, saying, The Lord hath utterly separated me from his people. Neither let the eunuch say, Behold, I am a dry tree. For thus saith the Lord unto the eunuchs that keep my Sabbaths, and choose the things that please me, and take hold of my covenant. Even unto them will I give in mine house, and within my walls a place and a name better than the sons and of daughters. I will give them an everlasting name that shall not be cut off. Also the sons of the stranger that join themselves to the Lord to serve him, and to love the name of the Lord, to be his servants, every one that keepeth the Sabbath from polluting it, and taketh hold of my covenant. And lastly, Isaiah 58:13-14. If thou turn away thy foot from the Sabbath, from doing thy pleasure on my holy day, and call the Sabbath a delight, the holy of the Lord, honorable, and shalt honor him, not doing thine own ways, nor finding thine own pleasure, nor speaking thine own words, then shalt thou delight thyself in the Lord, and I will cause thee to ride upon the high places of the earth, and feed thee with the heritage of Jacob thy father, for the mouth of the Lord hath spoken it. The observance of the Sabbath is so serious that the children of Israel were sent into Babylonian captivity for 70 years for breaking it. You could read all about it in Jeremiah chapter 17. After the Israelites returned from captivity, they were keeping the Sabbath and knew the time of the week that it came. 70 years is too short of a time for any nation to lose track of the calendar. Also, genealogies were kept, as we read about in the book of Ezra. There is a lot more that could have been said, but I believe that this will suffice for now. This is the Old Testament history about the seventh-day Sabbath, and in our next presentation, we will uncover the seventh-day Sabbath in the New Testament. I pray that you were blessed by what you heard today in this Bible study, and please click on that subscribe button and turn on all notifications so that you will not miss a future upload of mine. Thank you for studying with me. God bless you.